Welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. With me is my co-host in these Wednesday/Thursday excursions into the world of sports, Gary Stein. Gary, how are you?
We got to make up our minds, Stan. Is it Wednesday or Thursday?
It's sort of when we can do it, but it's
I hear
mostly
ya.
Thursday. Mostly
Gotcha.
Thursday. Anyway, welcome in Gary Stein. With us is an old friend and somebody, it's funny, I'm looking at Gary Stein, Drew Forrester of Drew's Morning Dish, and myself. We've all been intimately involved with soccer here in the Baltimore area. That is not what I brought Drew in to talk about tonight, but we just got shot through the heart because we are not hosting any World Cup games here this year. Still a chance that Baltimore could be a host city or a training city for some team. Drew, did you think we were going to make it this time?
I did. I really thought when maybe a month ago or 6 weeks ago when they announced that DC had been removed from candidacy, I thought we were kind of a lock. It's funny, I did say to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and he was kind of talking about it, I said, the only thing I have to wonder is about our subway infrastructure and our rate, whatever you want to call it, public transportation. I kind of call it public rail, but I did mention that to my friend. I'm like, I just wonder, I hope that doesn't hurt us because we have pretty much nothing, right? I mean, the light rail, I don't know if you guys have ever involved yourself in the light rail to a Ravens game, but
I have a few times, yeah.
Oh man,
not a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I don't know if that, I don't know what the end result was of us not getting it.
Yeah.
I thought there were some interesting cities in there. Obviously, the Atlantas and Dallases and LA with these big cavernous stadiums and great support for their MLS teams. Can't discount that. I thought those were naturals. Kansas City has been kind of tried and true in the MLS for a long time.
Yeah.
The Hunt family obviously has been kind of embedded in soccer for a better part of 50 years, going all the way back to when Lamar Hunt owned the Dallas franchise that Kenny Cooper played for. So, Chicago not getting it was a little bit of a surprise.
Well,
I guess.
Chicago withdrew their bid.
Right. So
a couple of years ago. Yeah.
The tried and true places like Chicago, Detroit had games last time. They didn't get them this time.
And Minneapolis pulled their
right.
withdrew also.
So I thought we were in pretty good shape. I was very disappointed to see how it went. I had a bad feeling as soon as they announced San Francisco. I was like, oh boy, that one might hurt us. I kind of thought maybe we'd sneak in there instead of Miami, but I also understand there's a South American flair to Miami that we don't have, certainly. And from a draw standpoint, they'll give them a handful of South American teams or Latin teams, if you will, that'll fill the stadium. So it's a bummer, man. I really thought we had a great chance.
I did too. Did it remind either of you guys? It did me just briefly how they basically were directed by FIFA to join with Washington after Washington knew they weren't getting any game because of FedEx Field. They don't like that stadium.
Right.
It reminded me of when the NFL said, Al Lerner, you jump in and take Boogie and the Glazers' place.
Right.
It reminds me whenever there's a bidding process and they direct you to do something, it's almost, to me, it's like a signal that they got no intention of.
And the weird thing is, I guess, because of we all know about the, whatever you want to call this thing we have with DC. If you want to call it a rivalry, that's fine. But like to the rest of the world, they say, oh, just put Baltimore and DC together. They're right next to one another. They love each other. They'll figure out a way to make this work. And in the meantime, we're like, we want nothing at all to do with this Washington, D.C. And, it's kind of a shock, too, that the nation's capital doesn't have any games either.
Yeah, they've got no games.
Have them than them. But it's a little bit of a surprise that they're not playing at least one game, even if it were just a kickoff game.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising they wouldn't play one game down there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, you have any thoughts about it?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, just to piggyback on Drew's thing, the fact that the rest of the country may lump Baltimore and Washington in together hurts us everywhere. It hurts us in the NBA. It hurts us in the NHL. It hurts us in this situation. We're too close. And maybe, I mean, I understand geographically we're 35 miles away. So in everybody's eyes, we are too close. We are basically one market. And this is just another instance where that comes back to haunt us.
Yeah, I mean, the city that really hurt us is Philadelphia, being only 85 miles away.
Right.
But Boston, it turns out, I just did some reading before we came on the air. It turns out Robert Kraft is on the FIFA committee or something, and he's very good friends,
of course,
with the head of the whole thing. So
right.
It's almost like it was wired.
Yeah.
It was almost like it was wired the whole time.
Now, again, you got to go back to part of no matter what anyone says about MLS doesn't matter. No matter what anyone says about that, it does matter. Yeah. And when you're able to sell seats in those stadiums, 50, 60,000 seats, Seattle has done very well. Yeah. It does matter. And the fact that we don't have a team, the thing they had
matters.
The thing that they had, they came in last year and watched that Ravens Kansas City game, and that's all well and good, but it's still not soccer. And I would say if there was one thing that hurt us, it would be that we don't have an MLS team.
Yeah.
One thing from soccer, not from the infrastructure of the city, but from a soccer standpoint, we every third year or second year, every 2 or 3 years, we sell out one of these international games and we thump our chest and say, this is why we're great. There's a big difference between doing that and selling 35,000 seats 15 nights a year for MLS.
Yeah, good point. Good point. The last thing on this, when they announced it, they announced the Western cities.
Right.
And they started with Vancouver, went down to Mexico, and then they go the central cities, and it was Kansas City, Dallas, Houston, and I forget where in Mexico. And all of a sudden, they got one more place, and they go, it's Atlanta. And I go, the last time I looked, Atlanta's over on the east.
Southeast,
but
right.
They clearly wanted Miami and Atlanta in, so they kind of screwed it that way because Boston was wired to get it. Our thoughts go out to Terry Hazeltine, his group. He and his group worked tirelessly and really did put Baltimore's best foot forward. But no World Cup games will be here. We still have a chance to be a host city or a training city. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that because it brings money into the coffers of the city.
And if they draw a team that say plays in Philly and Miami, maybe this is a place where they train back and forth from Philly. Yeah. They stay here. They take the train to Philly. They fly down to Miami. They fly back into ball. There could be a scenario where,
and that could be pretty lucrative.
Right. No question. Yeah. Their fans would all be hanging around for sure.
Hey, Drew, we wanted to have you on because it is the first night of the U.S. Open, and that tournament always is played at night on the first round. No, I'm just kidding. The first round was today. There's 50 players within 5 strokes on the first day. Adam Hadwin from Canada is -4. He's alone. Then there are 5 guys, including Rory McIlroy, Calvin Tarren, David Lingworth, Joel Damid, and MJ Defoe of South Africa. Those guys are all at 3. And then there's 7 more at 2 under, 12 at 1 under, 16 at even, and 15 at +1. That's 50 players within 5 strokes. Is that unusual?
Very unusual. By the way, Charlie would have had a field day with that leaderboard that you just tried to pronounce.
Yeah, well, it's a combination of the actual pronunciations and reading my handwriting.
No question.
I think Stan had a field day with it.
Yeah, I had a field day with it. Yeah.
Well, Charlie would have definitely had a field day. It's very, very surprising. I think the course.
This is Brookline in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's the country club in Brookline, right? I think 3 under is or 4 under is the leader. A very representative score, very good score for this golf course. I think that's what the final score is going to be in that range, 4 or 5 under. It's only going to get tougher. I know they're calling for a little bit of rain tonight. It's going to be cooler, but they can get that thing as fast and firm as they want it, and they're not going to touch the rough. And the rough is in some places at 6 inches. So I think tomorrow, you said there were 50 within 5. I think tomorrow there'll be 25 within 5. You know, it'll start to
thin out.
It'll start to thin out a little bit. You won't see there's always a couple of names that hang around. You mentioned MJ Duffy, the guy from South Africa. There's always a name like that.
You mean MJ Defoe?
Yeah, right. There's always a name. There's always a name like that hangs around. Richard Bland was your 36-hole leader last year. Torrey Pines, no one had ever heard of him before. There's always a guy or two like that. But when this thing tees up on Sunday afternoon, you can almost guarantee it's going to be the 6 guys that we all know. It's going to be Rory, JT, Dustin Johnson might be in there. One of these other guys that's at 1 or 2 over right now, Cam Smith or Spieth. It's going to be the 6 or 8 guys that you expect it to be come Sunday.
Just a quick fact before I turn you over to Gary for a couple of questions. And by the way, we wanted to talk to Drew tonight of Drew's Morning Dish about the U.S. Open currently underway and the start of this new LIV, I don't know what you call it, golf association that's financed by the Saudi Arabians. We'll talk, but the U.S. Open, the last 2 times it's been played at the Country Club in Brookline, 1988, Curtis Strange outlasted Nick Faldo in an 18-hole playoff, and then all the way back 25 years before that, in 1963, Julius Boros bested Arnold Palmer and little-known Jackie Cubitt, C-U-P-I-T, Cuppet, I guess it is, in an 18-hole playoff. So that course is not unopposed or unused to having playoffs.
Well, remember, in 1913, Francis Ouimet won as an amateur, and that also went to a playoff.
That was a playoff, yep.
I actually remember that.
Yeah, you do.
Good for you, Gar.
It's a really, really tough golf course with, there's not an extraordinary amount of length to it, but the greens are small. And if you don't hit the greens, it's very, very penal. You've got to get the ball in the greens from the fairway here. It's a second shot golf course for sure. And I think these guys are so good that when you see a final score over 72 holes of 3, 4, 5, even 6 under, that's really a testament to how tough the golf course is, because these guys, as you saw last week in the Canadian Open, when they all shot 62, 61, 60, 62 on what is also a fairly difficult course there. They always used to have that slogan, these guys are good. These guys are way beyond good. It's unbelievable how good they are.
Gar.
Well, I wish I could tell you guys that, I follow golf as closely as you do, Drew. Stan, I'm not sure how much you follow it. I'm going to be quite honest, and you guys know this.
I thought you said, invite Drew. I love golf.
I don't really care about golf.
You said invite Drew. I love Drew.
But what I do care about is business. And this LIV PGA, kerfuffle or whatever you want to call it, is really, really interesting to me. And, it doesn't really have to do with the play. It has to do with the business of golf. And I just started following it just recently when Stan actually said that you were invited to come on, because it really is interesting.
So you followed it all of one day.
No, I followed it for the last few days. But anyway, my point is, Drew, to get us started in the conversation, just give us a little background as to why how this even came about.
Okay.
How did Greg Norman get into Saudi Arabia?
How did Greg Norman pull this off?
It's a great question, because when you hear this answer, it really will provide some context to the discussion about what they've done. And for the most part, you're either for it or against it. It's a very, very polarizing topic. Going all the way back to the mid-90s, when Greg Norman was the number 1 player in the world and was, arguably golf's hottest commodity. Yep. It was at the tail end of Jack's career, and Tiger had not yet started. So that window from about 84 to 94 was really when Greg Norman dominated golf. He approached the commissioner at that point, Tim Fincham. he approached him with an idea and said, hey, why don't we lop off the best 30 or 40 players and let them go play all by themselves and make a whole bunch of money. And the rest of the guys can play on the regular tour. And their goal will be to get into the top 40 where they can come and play with all of us for the money. And Fincham said, no, 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 doesn't work that way, because no one will go watch those guys play. And I won't be able to get any of those tournaments on television. You've got to stay here. Norman objected to it strenuously, made a big deal about it, wanted to call it the World Tour. And obviously he wanted to do it because at that point he was the
best.
He was the marquee drawing card, and he was if the purse was $1 million for the winner, he was going to win, right? So 4 or 5 years of that sort of tension finally dissipated, and in '99 the tour started what was called the World Golf Championships, which looked very, very suspiciously just like the idea that Norman floated. 78, the top 78 players in the world played 4 or 5 times during the year. They played for a huge amount of money. They did play 72 holes, but there wasn't a cut. Everyone was guaranteed money, and it looked and smelled and sounded exactly like what Greg Norman wanted to do. And ever since then, he's had he's had it out.
A bug up his ass.
No question. He's had it out for
the PGA.
For the PGA Tour. He's always thought that idea was the right idea for golf. He's basically said no one cares about any of the guys outside of the top 50. They doesn't matter who they are. But the inside of the top 50, everyone cares who those guys are. So 2 years ago or so, he was able to get the Saudi Public Investment Fund to agree to put this money in. And the rumor, no one's ever documented the number, but the rumor is they gave him $4 billion.
$4 billion with a B?
$4 billion with a B, and said, what can you do with this? And his response was, I can bring you all of the top 25 players in the world with this money. I can go get them all. And that really started the engine of, will this league work? He obviously underestimated a little bit of the legacy angle that a Spieth and a Justin Thomas and a McIlroy are holding on to.
Yeah.
But they have found a group of players, and they're going to find more, that this league really dovetails nicely with where they are in their career. And
how many players do they have now?
They have 48 now, but they have 20 that you've heard of. The other 28 you've never heard of, because frankly, 15 of those 28 I've never heard of. But
Just from a timing perspective, Drew, you're saying that Norman hatched this idea with the Saudis like 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2 or 3 years ago.
That's after the murder of Khashoggi, correct?
Correct.
Yes, that happened in
I'm just trying to,
Yeah, so Norman, he put this money together, went out to try to solicit and recruit these players, kind of got turned down. I think we all know, and I guess I'll use Phil as an example, but I'm not picking on him, but I'll just use Phil as an example. They probably offered Phil $75 million at the beginning. Phil said, not enough. They came back 3 months later and said, hey, has $100 million. Phil said, not enough.
Right.
And at some point, they finally give you the number, and you go, okay, if that's the number, I'm doing it. Can you do it for $200 million? If you'll give me $200 million, I'm in. So what started out as they were probably just going to give away 25, 50, 100 million, turned into, well, we got to have some players. We don't have anybody. Give Dustin Johnson 125 million. Give Pat Reed 75 million. Give Phil 200 million, because Phil's kind of the de facto leader of it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's really the root of it. And the structure of the thing is what's really the hot button topic, besides the American Saudi narrative.
right.
The golfing angle is this better for golf? And I think it's awful. I think it's terrible. I think they've created some other way to play golf, which I think I hate.
I heard today, for example, and I know I'm jumping in on you, Gary, but I heard today that they have shotgun starts in this.
Correct.
Yeah. Which
Shotgun
means,
starts and nobody gets cut, basically.
Right. So they play 54 holes.
right.
Right.
They put everyone out on the golf course at the start of the day, and then they all play. That is in total contrast to the way golf should be played, because the golf course is built.
They're designed a certain way to be played.
Correct.
Yeah.
And most designers build them by nines. So the first hole and the first to the ninth hole has some sort of movement to it that is important and integral to the ability of you to score. Hard hole, easy hole, couple easy holes, two tough holes, holes that go left to right, holes that go right to left. So I would say, of all of the things that I really despise, it's the fact that everyone gets paid. And that completely goes against the grain of what golf has always been, which is you show up on Thursday with your bag, you come to the tee and say, I'm better than you today, and I'm going to go shoot 68 and prove it. And if after those first 2 days, you're not one of the best half of the field, one of the best 50%, put your bag back in your trunk, go home and try to get better the next week. And it's always been that way. And I know there are going to be people that say, well, everything can be changed, but I just think this is terrible. And it's really taken away from to me, it's taken away from the integrity of what tournament golf is all about. And
but Drew, I guess
they're playing an exhibition. It's a glorified exhibition.
Right. So I get right. And that's just what I was going to say, Drew. I guess that's the point here. And again, I'm going to go back to my original statement where I'm not really a golf guy. Okay. And I know that you are, and it's personal to you, and it's much more important to you, the traditions and things of that nature. But my point is the LIV tour, let's just call it that, never pretended that it was anything other than what it is. So, it is exhibition golf, for lack of a better term, but they never said that it was going to be anything other than that. And players obviously have a right to make a choice. Do I want to go for the money? And again, I'm not here to say it's right or wrong, but I mean, you can't blame players when somebody puts a $250 million paycheck in front of you or something like that to jump at it.
I would agree with that. I would say that the money is very, very difficult to turn down. There's no question about that. Again, if you look at the way they've recruited players and the window of those players' career, even Dustin Johnson, who I guess at this point would be the biggest name they have, who's still very competitive.
Right.
Even he now at 37 is starting. He's in the October of his real competitive career. So to that end, when a guy like Dustin Johnson says, "I'll just take the 125 million," it probably isn't that much of a surprise. I would say that the one argument or the one business debate which is ongoing are from people who say, well, why can't they just do both? Why can't they just play in both of them? And that absolutely 110% would never work.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that work?
Because this LIV event is coming to Portland, Oregon to play in a tournament the same weekend that they're playing the John Deere in Iowa, which is a long-standing tour event that has put millions and millions and millions of dollars into that community and is one of the things that's kind of like their Masters. It's one of the things that keeps their community active together year round. If you play this LIV event in Portland and the top 25 players go there, no one comes to John Deere.
Yeah.
So you can't have, and I guess here would be the easiest comparison to give you. There's a new football league that only plays once a month. They only play games once a month. Lamar and Burrow and Herbert all want to go play in that league, but they only want to play once a month. But the games are on Sundays. That's the same sort of thing you would have here. The NFL would say, you're not going to take our 4 best players and play against us on Sunday afternoon in Seattle when the Seahawks are playing on the road in Minnesota that day, right?
The little known example of this same thing, and we do a thing called One More Thing every Wednesday, Glenn and I and Luke, and we come up with a topic to talk about. It's little known that back in the mid to late 40s, there was a very wealthy family that bought the Mexican Baseball League. They had tons of money. And all of a sudden they decided, why don't we compete with Major League Baseball? And they went after the top 8 or 10 players in Major League Baseball. And the commissioner stepped in and said, you go over there, but you're never getting back in Major League Baseball again. This was Stan Musial, Ted Williams, Bob Feller. Very few people remember that. You got to be my age to remember it. Now, certain players like Sal Magley, there were a couple players of that ilk that weren't superstars. They went over, the thing fizzled. They were allowed back after paying a penance, of a year or two.
I think, though, what I do think might happen in this is I could foresee right now, the PGA Tour season is November and goes October and November. Then they're off December. Then they go January to August. So there's no real golf in September. And there's only a tournament or 2 in October. Then there's 2 or 3 tournaments in November. I could see the tour at some point, because this is definitely going to court. I mean, they're
altering their schedule.
Yeah, there is no doubt this is going to court. And I could see the PGA Tour someday being exclusively January to the end of August.
Right.
And then they say to the LIV Tour,
this is when you play your events.
September, October, November, December, you can have it. And January, potentially. You can have those months, and we'll let those guys go play, but they can't play opposite us.
Yeah.
Now,
I could see that. But,
I could too.
But Drew, let me ask you, you say it's going to go to court. Who wants what in court? What goes to court?
Dustin Johnson wants the right to play in
both leagues,
both of them, right? Yeah. So what's going to happen is they're going to take the PGA Tour to court.
It'll be a class action suit, won't it?
Right. It's all going to be about this independent contractor status, and the tour is going to say, we're not telling you that you can't play LIV Golf. We're not telling you that. What we are telling you is that you can't do both.
But does it say that in their contract? Is there a stipulation in the contract?
Yeah. So what it says in their contract is that in order for you to play in an event that conflicts with any PGA Tour event, you have to get a player release. Okay. Now, historically, the tour has given those on an isolated basis. But this is not isolated. This is, I need 8 releases. And oh, by the way, 4 of the events are in the US at the same time you're playing events. Mm-hmm. So that wouldn't fly. I was a little surprised. I do understand why they didn't do it, but I was a little surprised that they might not have been a little more flexible with them for this London event.
Mm-hmm.
Just given
last week.
It's in London. They were playing in Canada. But their lawyers probably said, you can't start off being friendly with them. If you do that, it sets a bad precedent.
That's true.
Drew, before we get out of here, because we both all want to leave and watch the Warriors play the Celtics in just a couple of minutes. Question.
That's tonight?
Yeah, it's right now. Sergio Garcia, like 2 or 3 months ago, he got that bad ruling while he was out playing. I forget what it was over, but he ended up losing a stroke for it, I think.
Right.
And he was heard to more than mutter, saying, "I can't wait to get out of this place."
Right.
Do the players really feel like they're oppressed somehow by the PGA? I'm trying to understand what he was. So I know he was probably heat of the moment. He was pissed at the ruling he had gotten. or do they really just hate playing in the PGA?
Well, no, I think at that point, that was right around, that was only a month ago. It was the beginning of May, and it was at TPC Avenel down in DC. That was right around the time when all of the releases had to be in. The releases had to be in that week,
Okay.
and they had all been denied. I think they were denied on like April 27th.
Okay.
So that came right on the heels of them finding out, hey, you can't play in that event. We're not letting you play, and you're going to have to make a decision. And I think he had already made a decision, and that was why he said, I can't wait to get out of this place. He knew he was gone already.
All right. Now, question about Dustin Johnson, or just using him as an example, because you gave us 125 million. He gets 125 million. Is he still competing to win more money each time he plays in the LIV?
Yeah, they gave the winner $4 million last week.
Okay, so he's 125 is like a guarantee.
Right. So he got $125 million for 4 years. The rumor in the golf world is he got half of it up front and he gets the other half after 2 years. He has to play all of the events that they put on their schedule. And, you know, and he hasn't even, I don't know what he finished last week. I don't think he played particularly well, but he probably made 400 grand for finishing T25, right? Like, so he you know, he's got 125 million, whether he shoots 100 or he shoots 70.
Now, the reason I wanted to have Drew on, Gary, is because he knows this stuff intimately. He's really a student of it. You told me yesterday when we talked that the LIV had offered Tiger Woods $950 million to come play in their league. Is that correct?
That's the golf rumor.
And how many
Tiger
years would that have been for?
Tiger
What did he
said,
say?
I'm not doing it unless it's 975.
How many years would that have been for?
I would assume 4 or 5. I mean,
Okay.
Jeez.
And what's the scuttlebutt? Last question. Mickelson. Okay, he supposedly already is in a self-loathing period about what his decision was and what he's done. The 200 million. Does he need that 200 million because he's gotten into some lean times with his gambling, or is it just he just wanted to make? Nobody can blame him for wanting 200 million, but
yeah, I mean, reportedly he had lost 40 million gambling, but I don't know if he had 80 and lost 40 or if he had 50 and lost 40.
Right.
But my guess is he had 100 and lost 40. But I think with Phil specifically, it looked to me on Monday that I think he's really regretful about what happened.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
And I think 200 million is the only way that it could soothe him.
Yeah.
I think in the end, his buddies are like, dude, I can't believe it. You really went? And he's like, I asked for 150 and they gave me 200.
Right.
Like,
Drew, let me ask your opinion on something. Let's just talk about the moral aspect of it. You know, U.S. and Saudi Arabia have a contentious relationship, obviously. You know, obviously the Khashoggi murder as well. My question is, take Saudi Arabia out of the equation for a minute. Let's say this was a Western allied country that had come up with a new tour.
Like Australia.
Let's say it was Australia.
Yeah.
Let's say it was Japan, England, whatever. Would it become as contentious as it is with Saudi Arabia? Or is it just a rival league to rival the PGA that is the contention?
Good question. And I think the answer is it would be different. I don't think there's any question about that there is a stigma attached to the Saudis going all the way back to 9/11. And there is a stigma attached to them. The other stigma attached to the Saudis is they're not in this to make a profit. There isn't a bottom line for them. They're not worried about, well, we spent 400 million, we didn't make any money. They already know they're not making any money. It's
right.
It's not a business that they're running for profit. They're just running a golf league and they're just buying golfers and having fun. But I think if it were Japanese backed, I do think it would be different. I don't think the fundamentals of it would change from a golfing standpoint. The tour would still say, no, you're not going to play the Japan World Tour while we're playing the Wells Fargo. You're not doing that. But I think that the optics of it would be much easier for us to digest if it wasn't Saudi Arabia. It does matter.
But do you think it would have to go to court, or would they be able to settle it out of court amenably?
It would still go to court because the PGA, it doesn't matter who runs even when the players go play in the European Tour, like the week before the British Open, a lot of the players go over there and play the Scottish Open and the Irish Open. They have to get a release for that. They still have to go get a release, but the tour always lets them go do that because it's part of the travel of going over there and playing the British Open. They do have a strong friendship with the RNA who runs the European Tour. But if the Japan World Tour started, it would probably still wind up in court unless they were able to work together. This is no way that they're going to be able to work together.
All right. He's Drew Forrester. Drew's Morning Dish. What do you got up tomorrow morning?
I'm starting to think about that right now. I'm going to lament. I'm going to lament about this World Cup thing a little. It's very disappointing.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys saw the Deadspin article this week about Baltimore.
No.
So this is so some guy from Deadspin wrote this article that, we're losing our baseball team. Just face it. Just like the Mayflower.
The losing the baseball thing is so ridiculous.
I know.
It's unbelievable.
I've been saying this for a year. They're never going to, the owners would never allow for it. And never. John Angelos, I'm not saying he would, but John Angelos could walk into that room tomorrow with the greatest plan in the world for Nashville. He is never, ever getting 24 owners to vote yes to that.
Correct.
So,
and first of all, he won't own the team by the time they would move.
Sure.
Be trying to move.
But the Deadspin article basically lamented the attendance and how Baltimore's dead. And have you seen We Own This City or whatever the name of that show is? Sorry if I got it wrong. And the article was very, very like, hey, you're
negative.
Yeah, you're losing your baseball team one day. Just face it. And so this today was kind of like the Roadrunner dropping the anvil on the wolf again or whatever he's called.
All right. It's Drew. It's Drew's
Morning. I think you got that right.
He's a coyote, right?
Yeah, a coyote. Drew'sMorningDish.com. It's something new there up there every day. All right. Drew, thanks for coming on.
You got it, guys. We'll see you
really
soon.
Appreciate
Drew, you're the best.
Have a good summer.
Right. All right. You too. I've got to talk a little bit about the Costas Inn. That's right. The Costas Inn, everybody in Baltimore knows that the Costas Inn is the place to go to eat steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, steaks, ribs, chicken, salads. Gary's eating there. He loves it all. He loves
all
it
of
all.
it. Love it.
That's why he stays through the commercial. Anyway, the Costas Inn realized during the pandemic that they wanted to step up their game for curbside, takeout, whatever you call it. So they really spiffed up the room that they operate out of. They always pack their food incredibly. There's never a thing you're going to come home and there's a bag that's got soup that went over your hamburger or something like that. They pack it up really first rate. They do it all first rate. Go to CostasInn.com, CostasInn.com to see the menu, call up, pay for it with your credit card, and then just stop by and pick it up. The Costas Inn, located at 4100 North Point Boulevard, phone number 410-477-1975. Gary, I'm assuming that Terry Hazeltine is a man of his word, and he will join us this coming Thursday, unless he is really sticks his head in like an ostrich, sticks his head in the ground. Again, in case you haven't heard the news, the FIFA World Cup is not coming to Baltimore or Washington for games in 2020. All right.
Very disappointing, but I think he will be. Hopefully, he'll be a man of his word. I wish we had better news to talk about, but I think.
Well, we do have some good news. You know, he added to his repertoire, his arsenal, we're getting the Army Navy game again.
Yeah, I saw that.
2025.
Yep,
2025.
got it.
So anyway, we'll talk
Sounds
with
good.
him. We're going to have David M. Smith on. David M. D.M. Smith III. He's written a book called The Golden Arm Gentleman, a book about Johnny Unitas, and he will join us on June 30th. Okay. So
Sounds
that's
good.
a couple of guests, and we'll get to more of them. And also next Wednesday, I'm sorry, the 22nd, Gary, we are going to have Kyle Harrison on.
All right. from the
Former
PLL.
Johns Hopkins star, right?
Yep, absolutely. Talk about
Yeah.
the PLL
And he's,
coming to
and he's
Baltimore.
with the PLL, and the PLL comes next week. And I got us our credentials, Gary. All right.
Thank you.
Working on it. All right. That wraps us up again. CostasIn.com. Check out their menu. Order something to carry out. But don't stop going to the Costas Inn if you want to eat inside. All right. For Gary Stein, Drew Forrester, I'm Stan the Fan, and it's 2-2 Golden State and the Boston Celtics.
That's a pitcher's duel. See ya.